All right, Noah, let's take a look at your essay. So what I did is, I know we're not doing MLA format just yet, but what I did do is, oh, excuse me, I put this into double space format just so it's easier for me to go through the essay and so I could talk about different things with you. Now, for the essay, we were looking at a minimum of 5 paragraphs, and on a technicality, you do have it because of the sentence, but because it's just one sentence, it really comes down to 4. So what I'm gonna do is let me see if I can extend this. Nope, not gonna let me. Let me pause this for a second. Okay, so your first paragraph kind of blends in an introduction with your first body. So I want to talk about these bit by bit because I'm not sure what's going on where. Okay, so starting with this is your hook. Would you kill a loved one that is in pain? If this is your hook, which it is because it starts your paper, it's okay. It's not the greatest. The problem is, perhaps for an audience that doesn't know what mercy killing is, they're going to see this and not really understand the context surrounding it. So there is definitely perhaps some better ways to start it. And then you move in right into the argument that you are taking. Mercy killing is ethical. Okay, you didn't quite define mercy killing yet. So what I would say is, especially for your intro, let me move down a bit. This is really what your intro should entail. Is you start off with hook to engage reader. And I'm more concerned with looking at ways to not start a paper. Because the hooks I gave you aren't always the end-all be-all, but there are definitely ways that you do not want to start your paper. Okay, so you have your hook, you build on information that introduces what your topic is. So this is where from your hook to the end of the introduction you define mercy killing, as well as potentially some perspectives on it. But you would do that very briefly. So kind of that ethical, unethical component of some people see it as this, some people see it as that. Perhaps there's better ways to do it. And then you have your thesis, which is your claim. It is or is not ethical. And if you remember back to that paper I gave out to you with example theses, you could always use that. Okay, so moving on to the next component, and it's especially this first paragraph, you have a lot going on, which is why I'm addressing it like this. So through studies of mercy killings, it's proven to be a highly touchy topic. Okay, but this is the part that throws it off. Not many writers would like to study this strange, humane way of killing a person, blah, 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 that is struggling to stay alive. So I actually like this verbiage right here. If you're talking about mercy killing, the humane way of killing someone struggling to stay alive, this is some pretty good verbiage and good vocabulary and sentence building. But the problem is, not many writers want to study this. I don't know where this is coming from. I don't think this is necessarily true. So just be aware of that. That doesn't have as much relevancy to do with your paper. And the way you introduce this article isn't best. So one of the many articles, Dr. Jack Kevorkian dies, blah, blah, written by Keith Schneider in 2011, was a huge turning. Actually, you know what? Let me stop here. You can just say, a way to make this better when you introduce articles is to always have the author first. So you can say Keith Schneider's 2001 article, Dr. Jack Kevorkian, and I'm just going to copy and paste that. Whoops, I already have the doctor. Dies at 83, doctor who helped end lives. And then whatever it is, addresses, whatever. I'm not sure what you mean by a huge turning point is. You have the wrong word here. Maybe you mean in. A huge turning point and how people feel about this harsh way to end a person's life. It's, and again, this is a contraction. You do not need to use contractions. You need to spell it out. It's something nobody wants to do, but is sadly necessary for everyday human life. This verbiage is good. I don't understand what the turning point is, because the way this is written is you're implying the article is the turning point, which is not what the case is at all. I think what you're trying to say is Kevorkian brought this to the national spotlight, and that was a huge turning point in addressing these situations. So just be aware of that the way this is worded, this is a little confusing. There's some grammar issues that are there. And then as we move down here, most people believe that this should be left for a doctor to discuss because this is the wrong there, you need they are, because the other one you had was possessive. The there you're thinking about is this, THEY''RE. They are the most trained in this topic, but the difficult part of that is that normally it's in the moment, blah, blah, blah. So this is a little bit difficult. Because I don't think this is necessarily true, because this kind of implies that, oh, they're sick right now, they have to instantaneously decide if a mercy killing is going to happen. That's not quite what it is. So, and then you move on to, since doctors, I think you should mean, have studied the human anatomy, it's much easier for doctors or a doctor to know what to do in the situation, but people will believe what they want to believe, or possibly believe that ending a loved one's life is best for them. It's left to opinion in that tough situation. So there's a lot going on. You have a little bit of an introduction with a body paragraph here, but it's so blurred by the fact that I don't know if this is an introduction or if this is, a first body paragraph. And I'm sorry if I just said introduction, this would be body paragraph. Because you have a little bit in the beginning that this would be kind of an introduction, and then you've got body paragraphs, and then you leave it like this. But this is another thing I'm concerned with. Don't tell us as a reader it's left to opinion in that tough situation. It is your job as the writer to tell us whether or not it's ethical, plain and simple. You need to come right out and say, yes, this is ethical, or no, this is not ethical. So you need to be consistent with that. So let me switch back to your essay. So moving on into your next body paragraph, this is something I've been struggling with as I've been going through essays, is yes, there is this component of religion's not seeing it, and you have some things that are good here. Let me start with this right here. Your topic sentence. Mercy killing is ethical to some people. You need a comma before but, because that is a conjunction. You always need a comma before the word but. Certain religions do not believe in any type of killing. For example, Christians do not believe in any person. Actually, no, we're going to stop there. Your topic sentences should not have examples. So what I mean by that is you should start off with what the paragraph is going to be about, and then move into an example. So this itself should be its own sentence. And then I know we haven't talked about incorporating quotes and stuff in essays, but when you say something like everything mentioned in this paragraph was found on BBC Ethics website, you don't necessarily have to say this. You would need to put this somewhere earlier, because when you just throw it at the end, it doesn't quite work. Typically with MLA, and we will talk about this later, I'm not worried about it right now, you would introduce what the article is, and then you use in-text citations to show us where you get the information from. But for something like this, you would probably want to start off with, as demonstrated on, or as illustrated on BBC Ethics website, for example, blah, blah, blah. But the problem is this doesn't really use the articles or of Mice and Men. So any of the stuff I gave you was not used. And part of the problem, what it mostly comes down to is, yes, this is a perspective people have, but there are no specific examples. And that's what you need to drive your essay, is specific examples with some analysis. So some of this would be fine if you had a specific example, and then talked about, oh, this is sinful, they don't believe in this. But that's just something to watch out for. And that's, I'll talk about that later. So if we move on to your next body paragraph, right away, this is fine. So let me read this out loud to you. And a popular novel known as Of Mice and Men touches this difficult topic in the middle and end. The end plays, you have the wrong place here. This should be plural. You have this as a possessive right now. Plays a much bigger role in this popular belief. Oh, this is going on. Where does this end? No, I'm not going to do this. Right here. You have this all as one sentence. This is a run-on. You need to get rid of this. This is way too much. So the topic sentence started off okay if you just say, of mice and men touches on this, and then go to explain it with separate sentences. And you talk about George and Lenny, and then you talk about the puppies. Let me pause this for a second. Okay, so with this one, you have a good example that can drive your analysis, but the problem is you don't have much analysis, and there's a little bit misuse with the information. So let me read this to you. I will actually read this. In a popular novel known as Of Mice and Men touches this difficult topic in the middle and end. The end plays a much bigger role in this popular belief. The two main characters are George and Lenny. Lenny is not very bright, could say, I don't know who could say, and Lenny helps keep both of them alive and well. At the end of this novel, Lenny is petting one? I think you mean one. Puppies. One puppy? I'm not sure what you're saying there. What is boss's wife? And if you say boss is like this, you need an apostrophe S to show it's his wife. But also, it's not his boss's wife, it's his boss's son's wife, so it's Curly's wife. Just address him by Curly. When his boss's wife comes in and offers him to feel her hair, Lenny does this because he likes feeling soft things. When he does, she goes frenzy on him. That doesn't work. You would have to say something like, she has a frenzy, or goes on a frenzy, on it, which frightens him. He ends up killing her on accident. So you have way too much going on in this one sentence. You have, here's an example of Mice Men. You explain who the main characters are. You explain the puppy. You explain Curly's wife dying. And then you explain Lenny's motive. You literally have 5 different ideas going on in the same sentence, and that is not good. But you start here with, well, George shot him because it was easier, and I think what you're implying is it saved him a little bit. But the problem with that is you need to make it specific about it being ethical. You have this one huge long run-on sentence about what happens in the novel, and then you're just like, oh, well, this was easier. So you need to take the time to explain that. And then finally, with your conclusion, this is an okay way to end it. Mercy killings are ethical, proven through many articles and novels written throughout time. Here's a quick way. I'm going to actually use this because whenever you say as evident throughout time, it's not a super great way to do it. So let me move this over. Paste what you have in here. Mercy killings are ethical, proven through many articles and written throughout time. What you could say is as evident through the articles and novel discussed, mercy killing is proven to be ethical. This is a much more effective way of ending your conclusion because you don't want to focus on, oh, there's so many articles and novels written out here, because that's not the kind of paper you're doing. You want to make it specific to what you have written about, okay? And then you go on to explain Of Mice and Men and recap the articles, which is okay. Let's see. And at the end, it really comes down to caring for a person enough to believe that it is the best way for them. Mercy killing is ethical because it puts somebody into a better spot than struggling to live. So your conclusion is actually probably your best paragraph, but the problem is mercy killing is ethical because it puts somebody in a better spot than struggling to live. Without that analysis, this doesn't work out super great. And if we talk about your first paragraph, body paragraph, right here, I'm not really sure what the first is. This, I'm assuming this is your opposition, but you don't refute or explain this. You just say, this is what people believe, but you don't have anything to back up your claim that it is ethical. So the key thing with an opposition is you talk about what their perspective is and then go in and say, well, they're wrong, it is actually this. So that would be how you have to do that. But overall with the essay, I think you need to be more mindful of using specific evidence and not just kind of this vague evidence and hypothetical stuff. And you really need to integrate a lot of analysis and tie it all back into what you said right here, mercy killing is ethical, and also how you concluded is good. It gives them a better spot than, you have the wrong then there, struggling to live. So hopefully with all this, you know where you need to be headed for your next essay.